So here we are, Rand Carter coming back to you, Gainesville, Florida. Here we are looking at the potential site. I've got the wheelbarrow sitting in an approximate place where I'm going to put my compost pile. I think I decided that I'll do a square one, 4-foot square. So I'll be using the material shown here. This is sort of the tool section of the build. So the first thing you're looking at, of course, is a wheelbarrow. I'm sure you have one of those already. The next thing is the poor man's version of sifting whatever products. You get it down small enough, it breaks down quicker, and at some point you're going to end up sifting it anyway, or probably when you harvest you'll sift it just because you want that sense of super richness that you get without the particles being bulky and causing disruptions in your visual acuity or whatever. So I'm using the 3/8 inch wire. It's the most versatile. You can get things up to a 1/2 inch depending on what it is you're doing. I've got one of those and I use it ever so often depending on how bulky the material is that is my resource. Most of the chips and things like that get where the 3/8 works out well, creating a nice particle, something that you would love walking on with your bare feet that you may not want to with something larger than 1/2 or 3/4 might hurt a little bit. So I use the 3/8 and even have 1/4 inch for working with the worm castings, things like that. So it's not very expensive. The screen will last with rigorous use for sifting maybe wood chips 40 times. Let's say 40 times you can sift wood chips, and then you may have to go out and spend another $2 to get a screen. Anyway, it's adequate. It rolls up and stores nicely. You don't have to worry about whether it's inside or outside. It'll go wherever you want to put it. So some good advantages. We're looking at some of the buckets from last night's fog summit. The Florida Organic Grower Summit. Some of these materials I'll be putting into the compost pile, the biochar. There's also a delightful product that I create with the ground up oak leaves and mix the manure in it. You let that sit in a bin or a box of adequate size, and once it's gone through, it's sort of almost compost style, not as hot, but it goes through a process and the worms will discover it, and you'll have a worm bin, at which point you can harvest and use as a mulch, something to add to your soil. Many uses, and one incredible transformation. Of course, the roll of chicken wire will form the outside of our compost bin. As I said earlier and emphasized over and over again, this compost is alive. You can tell because, well, it does things that dead things don't do. And if you don't give it a skin, and which chicken wire just simply holds the shingles of hay that I use to surround the sides and the top. Over here I've got 3 Southern Organic Supply out of Georgia. I'm not affiliated with them. The Vermiplex is a really nice product just for gardening. I also go by the theory that anything I include in the compost will be somehow homogenized. Is that the correct word? Maybe a bad word. But blended in with my compost. In other words, the organisms will eat the good stuff first, and then whatever's left over, they'll consume that, and they blend it all together into one big happy family instead of a bunch of entities. I think that's one of the main advantages of composting is I made the mistake one day of trying to put a bunch of clay on my front yard and ended up with red Georgia clay dust all in my carpet from trying to just throw it on the ground. So I learned that lesson harshly, and now I put my clay into the compost pile. You see a pair of plastic